You see his number going up or down? I'll start with you, Kurt.
Well, I think that, again, when you have someone with the most famous last name in American political history, you're going to pull at a certain point. You're going to have a certain name ID that traditional third-party outlier candidates don't have. When anyone sees the name Kennedy on a ballot, they have something comes to mind, and so that's one of his advantages. That's why he's at 18%. He's not going to go up too much. I think a lot of his support is really a protest against some people not liking either Trump or Biden, not satisfied with either of those choices. He could be a spoiler, but he's not going to be a serious contender to actually win this thing.
Peyton, do you agree?
Well, he's got a $30 million problem, and that's ballot access. So that number doesn't bother me. If you can't go vote and you're not going to write it in, he's not going to be there. So he's not going to be on the ballot. It's really hard. That's one of the things that when you start looking at the primary and you looked at the 14 people working in the Republican primary, I kept looking and saying, okay, he's not going to get on the ballot. He's not going to get on the ballot. They're not going to have the money. That's a part of the sausage-making process that's hard, Hannah, and the public doesn't understand it. But every state is different. And he's only on Utah. So Nikki Haley's on 36. Donald Trump's probably on 36 to 40. So here we go. And
yeah, the logistics of running for president, which people don't understand. It's not just you decide I'm going to run for president and you're magically on the ballot. It is a sophisticated, complicated, and it requires a lot of manpower and legal expertise.
It's like building General Motors. It's CFO. It's a lot of the backroom stuff that the public doesn't see.
Rich, you were surrounded by his supporters. Is he worried about polls at all? Do you think the numbers will go up?
No, he's actually leaning, from my perspective, he's leaning into the polls, saying he's number one among independents, the biggest voting party in the country right now. So he was touting that to the audience and basically saying he's certain he's going to be on the ballot in every state. He's got teams in every state on the ground collecting signatures. He seemed to have, no doubt about it that he's going to be on the ballot. But I guess you could the counter to that is, what's he going to say? Of course he's going to say something like that.
Good point. Rich, you actually brought up something because a Decision Desk HQ poll from last summer found 49% of respondents would be open to a third-party candidate if it's a rematch between Trump and Biden. Let's listen to a soundbite, and I'll come back.
Both President Trump and President Biden had their chance, and they've served a term, and let's not have a vote where the American people get the least of two possible evils.
Now, this was during a campaign stop last week. Kate and his RFK Jr. making a strong enough point here.
He is. He's really making the Nikki Haley case. I mean, these two older 80-year-old some odd guys are leaving out a section of the electorate that's there. And it's also a section that doesn't go in either primary. He's right. They don't go in either primary. You saw that in New Hampshire. We'll talk about that later in the show. But there is a section of the population that comes in that names every president. It's not the Democrat base. It's not neither base is big enough, Hannah, to get to be the president. You've got to get that independent. For us, we have to get the independent center-right voter. For the Democrats, they got to get the independent center-left voters. So all this primary process will disappear. Joe Biden's disappears next week. Ours is going to run a while.
Kurt.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think that when you look at no one has a more unifying impact on the entire Democratic Party than Donald Trump's name on a ballot. And I think that given what we have seen, especially after January 6th, when we get to the actual general election, when we get to the fall after Labor Day, as much as people might want to flirt with Kennedy, as much as people might want to tell a pollster, yeah, I like RFK Jr., at the end of the day, Democrats, I don't believe, will abandon Joe Biden because they're just terrified of the prospect of repeating what happened in 2016 and paving the way for Trump to get elected.
Should President Biden or former President Trump be worried about RFK? At least as a spoiler.
No, I think that they should. I don't think you can take anything lightly when a guy's got almost 20% of people saying that they would vote for them and consider him in some scenario. Like, he's going to take up oxygen. And again, I know Bobby. I've spent time with Bobby. He is a charismatic guy. He is someone that when you talk to him, he can convince you of a lot of things. He's getting these crowds and these responses. That's not an accident.